President Biden said last night that the central conflict of our times is between democracy and authoritarianism.
Can our democracy deliver the most pressing needs of our people? Can our democracy overcome the lies, anger, hate, and fears that have pulled us apart? America's adversaries, the autocrats of the world, are betting we can't. And I promise you they're betting we can't. They believe we're too full of anger and division and rage. They look at the images of the mob that assaulted the Capitol as proof that the sun is setting on American democracy. But they're wrong. You know it, I know it. But we have to prove them wrong. We have to prove democracy still works, that our government still works, and we can deliver for our people.
When we think of autocratic leaders, we think of China, Russia, and North Korea. But authoritarian threats to democratic institutions are on the rise in other countries as well, like the Philippines, Hungary, and Turkey. Biden points out that the world's autocrats are betting that our democracy will fail because of threats from the inside, like the lies and hate that fueled the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. Joining us to discuss is an expert on authoritarianism, Sarah Kendzior. She's the co-host of the podcast Gaslit Nation and the author of the best-selling books The View from Flyover Country and Hiding in Plain Sight, The Invention of Donald Trump and the Erosion of America. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So, Sarah, what was your takeaway from Biden's comments last night? It surprised me that he included it in this speech in terms of the urgent need to protect our democracy from authoritarianism.
Yes, it was refreshing. It's what the Democrats should have been saying all along. It's what the Republicans should have been saying all along, only they support autocracy, so therefore they weren't saying it. It needed to be said, both to highlight the fractures within our countries, the institutional flaws that hostile foreign autocratic states have tried to exploit, but to also just make the stakes clear that autocracy is on the rise worldwide. It's on the rise in the West, and we have a lot of hostile actors, not just from abroad, but within America, who support that. So you can't take anything for granted. American exceptionalism was never a real thing, and we have to fight to preserve what democracy we still have left.
One of the things that's so clear as well is just the optics of last night, right? I mean, he's standing in the House chamber where just about 90 days ago, we had a whole insurrection in the same room. And, he did say we came together after that insurrection and that our democracy is still intact with it, which is factually true. I mean, fact check true. But there is still a lot of division in this country. So what's your view on the future and health of our democracy, given what we've just experienced in terms of the insurrection?
I mean, we did a very unusual thing when we as Americans voted out Donald Trump, who was an aspiring autocrat who tried to sabotage the election through voter suppression, through manipulating the courts, and then eventually through a violent insurrectionist coup. Normally, people do not succeed against all those obstacles, but we did. And so, the state of our democracy, is it strong? No. I mean, we're basically hanging by a thread. So it's very good that Biden is addressing all of these things. But I think the problem is less division or even partisanship than it is deep endemic corruption, than it is systematic rot that's been building for decades. And that's something that, honestly, I think, not necessarily our politicians, but ordinary Americans across the aisle kind of agree on. Nobody likes corruption. Nobody likes kleptocracy, which translates to the rule of thieves. Everybody's sick of, money-grubbing politicians and dirty money in politics. We could kind of clear out that rot, I think, but then there are a lot of other issues that we do need to focus on, such as you were just discussing with systemic racism, police brutality, etc. I don't see those as divisive issues because I think the answers to them are very clear, but they obviously cause violence and fractures among Americans.
The other thing, too, I feel like, is that, into the corruption piece, that's the thing Americans really can understand. I mean, I remember back at the beginning of the Russia investigation, and when, the word collusion came up as the thing we were looking for, I was like, that's not even a crime. Like, that's a word that means something, but not there's no statute you can go look for with the crime and the elements of collusion. And so I felt like we lost that battle in terms of holding our elected officials accountable accountable to having fair elections when we mislabeled it. So in terms of the corruption piece, is something like the Rudy Giuliani news, the fact that the federal government under the new leadership at the Justice Department are seriously still looking into his conduct, is that something that you read and you said, okay, this is a good sign that the government under Joe Biden is taking this type of corruption seriously?
Yeah, it's a good start. But Rudy Giuliani, like many other people, including Roger Stone, Paul Manafort, and of course Donald Trump himself, should have been investigated a long time ago. And we knew about everything Rudy Giuliani was doing in 2019. We knew 6 months before the impeachment hearings began that he was making those illicit deals with Ukraine. You know, what we have is elite criminal impunity. And I think because of the failure of the Mueller probe to bring indictments and the failure of the Democrats in the House to act on the Mueller report and actually prosecute Trump for obstruction of justice, or, not prosecute, impeach him for a multitude of crimes, it's become normalized. It's become streamlined. And Americans lost their expectation of justice for criminal elites. And I think it's time to bring that back. And I truly see this as a nonpartisan issue. I think everyone in this country, regardless who you voted for, or if you voted at all, you are hurt by these individuals who are trying to take apart our country from within for just pure greed, power grubbing, and tyranny of the minority toward their own ends. They do not care about public welfare in any way, shape, or form.
Do you think that that's, I mean, you say that corruption is an issue that isn't partisan. I agree with that. But do you think that this current Republican caucus in the Congress, in the House and the Senate, do you think that they care about corruption?
They care about it in terms of how they'll benefit from it. They're basically behaving as an authoritarian cult linked to massive donor money. And what they want also is impunity. Republicans, because of their closeness to the Trump criminal operation, very likely have a lot of dirty money that's been donated to them, through proxies like the NRA, which are tied to, Russian mafia operations, Kremlin operations, and so forth. There may even be people in the Republican Party who are unaware that this happened to them, that they got these donations. They do not want an investigation. They do not want a rigorous analysis of, what has happened to their party, what has happened to their funding. And of course, the fact that numerous Republicans backed an insurrection, refused, to name Trump guilty at the second impeachment hearing. I mean, that's a tremendous black mark on them for this country. And aside from that, a lot of them are just plain old neo-Confederates. I think some of them see an opportunity if the United States were to actually fall apart, if there were a kind of new kind of civil war or partitioning, I think they would see that kind of chaos and destruction as an opportunity to profit. And that's a very sad thing, a very unpatriotic, anti-American, and destructive way to look at this country.
Oh, yeah, I think that, certainly no one here on this show wants a civil war in any way, shape, or form. The other question that I have, we don't have enough time for another question. I could talk to you all night. This happens every time I'm talking to you, either on air here on Peacock or on the radio, because you're always so insightful. Sarah Kendzior, thank you so much for being here tonight and for taking the time out. Hi, I'm Zerlina Maxwell. Thanks for checking out our channel on YouTube. You can see more from Zerlina by clicking any of the videos on this screen, and make sure you subscribe below to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. Thanks for watching.